Release date, October 28th, 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of TBD SportsCast College Football with your host. I'm Mason.
I'm Isaac.
We are super excited to bring you another episode of TBD CFB. This is Season 3, Episode 11, episode entitled Week 9. Why? Because we're talking about Week 9 college football. Jumping straight in, making our picks with our game of the week. As usual, Isaac, why don't you tell the folks what our game of the week is?
All right, folks, game of the week is 19th ranked Kentucky at number 3 ranked Tennessee. That one's in Neyland in Knoxville. It's going to be a great game, a huge SEC East matchup. Normally, it's one we probably talk about in basketball, but Kentucky's obviously had a pretty good squad in football the past couple of years. And Tennessee's back. It's what they're saying. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's going to be a good one. So looking at the spread, it looks like Tennessee's favored by 12.5 points. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't think that's a bad spread, but you look at Tennessee's had a really good offense this year, and their defense has not been bad. I look back at, granted, LSU's offensive line is not the one. It's not like the top tier one, but you know Tennessee's defensive line crushed us. Kentucky's had a pretty good defense, but all in all, man, I'm going to have to go with the Vols in this one. I think Tennessee will get it done. Even though Kentucky will make it close, I don't think they'll cover the spread, but I think the Vols take it.
Yeah, you know, we were trying to figure out what our game of the week was going to be. Obviously, the number one game that we thought about, that people were talking about, is number 2 Ohio State, number 13 Penn State. The consensus of the boys on this podcast was that it was most likely going to be a spanking, just like Michigan spanked Penn State. We think Ohio State's going to do the same. You know, we'll make that pick in a second, obviously. But with that being said, you know, we really think that out of, you know, the team that could beat the other team, we thought that Kentucky would have a closer shot at beating Tennessee than Penn State would have to beat Ohio State, just because, you know, they're in the SEC, and Kentucky's lost a game. They lost to South Carolina. We mentioned that a couple times, but Will Levis is back. And so the thing we know about Tennessee, like we've been talking about, Tennessee has no defense. And that's a big thing for me. It's like, do they have an explosive offense? 100%. Is Hendon Hooker like a Heisman quality rated quarterback? I think so. Personally, I do. I think Hendon Hooker's a great quarterback. He's super accurate. He can get out of the pocket and make plays when he needs to. He can use his feet and get first downs. Yeah, I mean, Hendon Hooker is a dual threat, and I think that he's just a great quarterback. But yeah, like you, Isaac, man, I got to go with Tennessee, dude. I just don't see any way around it. You know, I like Tennessee in this one. I don't know if it's by 12.5. I think Kentucky might make it close. I mean, I think Kentucky has a great shot to win this game. But I say the Vols by about 10.
I agree.
And Joey's pick for this game is going to be Tennessee. There you go, starting off our game of the week with a TBD triple pick. Moving on to our next game, we just mentioned it. It's number 2 Ohio State at number 13 Penn State at 12 p.m. You know, there is some controversy that we were talking about this week, how this game is not a night game. I feel like this is a primetime game, 2 ranked opponents in the Big Ten, and it's got the noon slot. I really don't agree with that. I really thought that should have been a nightcap, probably primetime, and I was kind of wondering why this was not the whiteout game. I mean, I don't know if it's, you know, trying to find time slots or, you know, with Fox or what, man. But seriously, this game should have been the whiteout. I mean, they had a chance to do the whiteout against Ohio State, one of the biggest and loudest games of the year at Penn State, and they did it against Minnesota. I think that's kind of weak, man. Like, what do you think just about that in particular?
I think that in particular is very odd. You know, we talked about it before we got on here, but you know, Penn State's done the whiteout against Ohio State, I think, for like 3 or 4 straight matchups now, dating back to 6 or 7 years ago. And then, of course, it alternates every year. You know, one year they're at Penn State, the other year they're in Columbus. But looking at it from that perspective, it's weird because they had the opportunity. It's a top 15 matchup. Penn State's only loss is to Michigan, who is the only other competitive team besides Ohio State right now, is the other top team in the Big Ten. So the fact that it's not a night game, or at least a 3:30 game, is weird, man. 12 o'clock is for chumps, just to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I think that this definitely should have been nightcap, dude. It's primetime football at noon, and I just don't agree with that. With that being said, though, looking at the spread, obviously Ohio State is favored 15.5, which is honestly Not as much as you'd consider. ESPN matchup predictor has Ohio State 79.6%, so rounded up to 80, might as well be. And I think that's really fair. They have an explosive offense. Defense has some holes, and like I said last week, I said Iowa would expose some of those holes. And you know what? They did. Iowa exposed some holes in their defense. In their ability to score against a good defense. Now, that being said, obviously Ohio State still destroyed Iowa, but still this is going to be a good game between Ohio State and Penn State. And just personally, I got Ohio State winning this. I really don't think there's a way that Penn State can win it. Man, they just don't. They're a bad second half team, dude. It's like that. Yeah, they look okay in the first half, and then they just let teams run all over them. So I just don't think they know how to finish games. Ohio State's got the explosive offense. Penn State has a mediocre defense, which is not going to be able to do well. I call Ohio State to cover the spread on this one, and that pains me to say it. Who will I be pulling for? Penn State 100%. Obviously. Screw Ohio State. Sorry, fans. Love you guys in the name of the Lord, but I hate Ohio State. All right, but yeah, who you got, man?
I don't know, man. I think, well, first of all, I'll start by saying I've got Ohio State. I'll be pulling for Penn State harder than I ever have in my life. I pull for Penn State like I'm a true Nittany Lion every freaking year when these two teams play. But I think Ohio State covers the spread. Looking at the two teams on the stat side, Ohio State has an average of 517 yards per game. They've average allowed 240. Penn State, on the other hand, only averages about 424 yards, and they give up just under 375. That's not where you want to be. Ohio State has a 250-yard difference on their spread there. Penn State's only got 50 yards. I don't think there's any reason why Ohio State won't cover, but we are. I'm going to pull for the Nittany Lions, but I think the Bucs will do it.
Absolutely, 100%. And just to get it in there, like usual, our good buddy Joey will be picking Ohio State University. There you go. 2 TBD triple picks in a row, man. How are we going to get? Oh, and speaking of the TBD predictions, yeah, I lost the lead. I went 7-3. Joey got it back by 1. For the first time in TBD SportsCast history, we had a pick record of 7 games or more be perfectly picked. Joey went 10-0. So yeah, good week for him, man. Isaac beat me too, 8-2. So yeah, it was a good week though. Good week in college football last week.
You should have picked the Tigers.
And I should have picked the Tigers. I don't know what happened, man. Old piss let me down. Anyway, all right, moving on. Next game. So we have a lot of games this week that are not super exciting, but some of these games are actually there are two teams that have a lot of the same or close records. Our next game up, we have Arkansas at Auburn at 12 p.m. This is another SEC matchup. Arkansas 4-3, not the year they wanted, but tough conference in the West. Auburn the same thing, 3-4, 1-3 in the conference. So they're both actually tied. They're both 1-3 in the conference. So this is fighting for not the last spot in the West. But just doing something different. We're actually going to let Joey pick this one first. Joey's pick for this is Arkansas. I think that's a good pick, and actually I'm just going to go ahead and make mine. I think Arkansas is going to win this. The spread is actually the spread is in Arkansas's favor by 3.5 points. Yeah, I call Arkansas to cover the spread and more. Arkansas has been plagued with injuries a lot this season, but Auburn is just an all-around bad football team, man. I don't know what Bryson Harsin is doing down there, but they need to fix it, and they need to fix it fast.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Auburn, a team that quite frankly was a really solid program 3 years ago. They had Bo Nix at quarterback, and I call him Twinkle Toes because of how he played against LSU in 2021. But
Bo picks.
But looking back at it in 2019, I went to that game in Baton Rouge, and they played LSU really close, and that was a good LSU team. And Auburn is kind of in the same boat as LSU. They kind of fell from grace rather quickly. But all in all, looking at it, I'm on the same side with Mason and Joey. I'm gonna give it a TBD triple pick. I've got the Hogs. I think Arkansas will go in there, and even though the ESPN FPI has given Auburn a 56% chance, I think all around Auburn has too many flaws as a team. This is a team that was beating LSU 17-0. And credit to LSU's defense, but they gave up. They didn't score any points for the last 2.5 quarters of the game. And again, credit LSU's defense, but Auburn, team with a pretty good quarterback, I think they should have been able to do it. And all around, Harsin and the Tigers, man, they just don't have it figured out. So I got the Hogs.
Yeah, man, and the ESPN FBI, like you said, 56.3% in Auburn's favor. And, guys, Isaac has been a longtime member of the TBD staff, but he's new to the podcast. But he's got to know, and you guys got to know too, a big theme of this podcast is that the ESPN FPI is like most always wrong. Vegas is a lot closer a lot of the time, even though even though they don't get it right a lot of the time. The ESPN FPI is not correct a lot of times. So if Auburn comes out and wins this one, sure, but it will be a close game. I do think it will be a close game, but yeah, I say Arkansas will cover the spread. All right, next game up. Again, another one pretty off the radar in the Big 12. Oklahoma at Iowa State at 12 p.m. Still in the noon caps game. Oklahoma 4-3, Iowa State 3-4, and Iowa State 0-4 in the conference. Man, they're looking for their first conference win. The ESPN FPI has them at 62.2%, and the spread on this is 1 point in the spread of Oklahoma's favor. So Isaac, will the Iowa State Cyclones finally get a win in conference, or will Oklahoma continue the losing streak for Iowa State?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think this game has a potential to be a decent one, considering that Oklahoma's defense has not been good. Oklahoma, I figured with a guy like Brent Venables as a head coach, they would have been better all around on both sides of the ball, but it's not been the case yet. It's year one. I don't want to judge them too quickly. But all in all, I think this will be a decent game. You got a team that's fighting to stay above 500 and a team that's fighting to get to 500 and get their first conference win. I think the Cyclones will probably make it a close game, but I'm going to go with the Sooners in this one. I think Oklahoma's going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, man. So this is going to be a really close one, I think. This was a close one when Iowa State, man, they've had some close games. They almost beat Kansas. They almost beat Texas. Texas was 10-9, dude. They just, it was close. I call this one to be a close one too, and that's probably why Vegas is calling this game by 1 point in Oklahoma's favor. But I gotta say, I'm gonna go with the Sooners on this one. I can't pick Iowa State. They've just proven that they cannot follow through to finish the game and win. If they make adjustments, especially with how terrible Oklahoma's defense is, and with this being at Iowa State, I definitely see them winning this. But I'm picking Oklahoma on this one. I can see Iowa State coming in and trying to and getting close, but not enough to finishing out. I got the Sooners on this one. And Joey is also picking, I believe, Oklahoma. He is picking Oklahoma on this one. So that's good. It's a good pick. Another TBD triple pick. Is that 4 in a row?
It is. I was just in here counting. 4
wow. 4 in a row. That is crazy. All right, cool. Next up, another off-the-radar game. Miami at Virginia, ACC matchup. Miami Hurricanes 3-4. Virginia Cavaliers 3-4. Miami 1-2 in the conference. Virginia 1-3 in the conference. Both trying to get to 500. Whoever wins this game will get to 500. ESPN FPI got Miami 54%, and the spread is 2. This is going to be a close game. I can definitely see that just because of how pretty terrible these teams are. Virginia's struggling with Georgia Tech just last week, and Miami coming off a pretty god-awful loss to Duke. Turned the ball over 8 times. This is going to be a tough pick, dude. It's at Virginia. Man, this is difficult because Miami, dude, they know how to give the ball over. It's like if they can stop the turnovers, I think they could win this game. But Virginia, man, their defense is not terrible. They just can't finish either. But they give the ball over too. This is like the battle of the 2 worst turnover teams. But yeah, ultimately I gotta pick Miami, dude. I feel like they're just the stronger one to pick at this point. I call Miami to cover the spread more. I'd probably say by at least 7.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mason. I think this will be a battle of the mediocrity. This will be a battle of mediocrity between the 2 teams. I think Miami has a pretty good shot. I was looking at the scores, and both of these teams lost to Duke by 20 plus points, and no disrespect to Duke football, but when you lose to Duke football by 20 plus points, you're really in trouble. Once again, these are 2 schools in Miami and UVA that most of the time we talk about during basketball season. With that being said, I'm going to go with the Canes as well. I don't think there's any way that the Cavaliers get it done. Most of all because UVA is just not a great football team, and Miami, they're not fantastic by any means, but I think they'll be able to get it done.
Yeah, I think Miami's going to win, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have another TBD triple pick here because I'm pretty sure Joey is picking, Miami. There you go. That's 5 in a row. Halfway done. All right, we're halfway through. We got 5 more games for you. Let's get through them. All right, another one in the Big Ten. It's a couple unranked teams. There's a lot of unranked teams, man. There's not a lot of big games this week where the number 1, 2, and 3 teams are getting knocked off or possibly get knocked off. All right, this is Rutgers at Minnesota at 2:30. That's kind of a weird time. 2:30. It's usually 3:30 or 4. But yeah, we got Rutgers at Minnesota. 2:30 p.m. Rutgers 4-3 and Minnesota 4-3, and both 1-3 in the conference. So once again, all right, the matchup predictor has Minnesota 88.5. The spread is 14 in Minnesota's favor, but it's Joey's turn to go first. So Joey is picking, boom, just like I thought, Minnesota. Joey, I'm right there with you. I think Minnesota is going to win as well. I really don't think Rutgers is good enough to beat Minnesota, and I think Minnesota is going to cover the spread.
With all due respect, I'm honestly shocked that Rutgers has won 4 games. But in all seriousness, looking at it from a realistic standpoint, the FPI, I will be more than shocked if this goes south. I like the Gophers in this one. I think Minnesota gets it done simply because Rutgers is not a great football team. Minnesota's not great either, but they have their moments, and they tend to be okay at times. So I got the Gophers in this one. I think they'll cover the spread, probably by more, honestly.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. Moving on to our next game, it's time for one of the oldest rivalries in the SEC. This is my personal game of the week, and if I guess we had to have an SEC game of the week, this would be it. It is Florida versus number 1 Georgia at 3:30 p.m. This game is played in Jacksonville. It's always played in neutral site. At least it has been for like the past 20 years. This is an important game because no matter how good the team is, Florida could be terrible and Georgia could be great, like it will be this weekend, or in past. Florida could be great all season and Georgia could be cheeks. So, this isn't going to be, we're not going to take much time on this one because, we all know the pick anyway. It's probably about to be like the 7th TBD triple pick in a row. Matchup predictor predicting Georgia by 92. The spread is 22.5 in Georgia's favor. I called Georgia to cover the spread more, bro. They got it 100%. This will not be an issue. I got the dogs.
Yeah, I got it right there with you, Mason. I like the dogs by probably 31. I mean, I hate to immediately jump the spread that much, but Florida's proven, even though they're 4-3 and they put up 35 points on LSU, they've proven to not be a great football team. They're working out their kinks. I think Billy Napier has a shot to win in the SEC. It won't be this year, and it definitely won't be against that Georgia defense. I got the dogs.
Yeah, man, and people are going to talk, whatever they want to talk about, but the thing is, Florida, they're very run-heavy, and that's what I said about LSU. That's, LSU has trouble covering the run. It's crazy they can actually cover the pass, which is one of the reasons why they were able to defeat Ole Miss, because they're a very pass-heavy offense. But because Florida runs so much, that's what Georgia does, man. We stop the run up front. We have one of the most physical front sevens in college football. So, yeah, I got the dogs in this one, and, just because we know that Joey is picking Georgia. So that's the 7th TBD triple pick in a row. All right, next game up. All right, this one's kind of crazy. I can't believe it. But yeah, we're Missouri at number 25, South Carolina. And yes, I said South Carolina. Now look, I'm just saying, South Carolina is 5-2, Missouri 3-4. So South Carolina is actually 2-2. They're not doing terrible. They got a rough schedule coming up though, man. They got to play Tennessee and Clemson before the season is over. So obviously they're not going to the championship or anything, but Beamer ball, dude, it's for real down there. Apparently, they're playing some good football up in Columbia. So yeah, man, the spread is 4 points in South Carolina's favor, and it's 68% on the matchup predictor, man. But you just got to tell me, bro, who you got.
Well, Mason, I felt really good when I looked at the FPI. It's got South Carolina by 68%, and then I looked at the spread and it was only 4 points, and so I thought, well, maybe I should go with those Tigers. But I was like, nah, I don't think that's going to be it. I think Beamer ball's for real. I think Rattler's finally finding his stride, and even though South Carolina's probably going to finish with 4 or 5 losses because of their schedule they have coming up with Clemson and Tennessee. All in all, I like the Cox in this one. I think they'll cover the spread. I think I got the Cox by a touchdown, maybe 10. I don't know. It'll be relatively close, but the Cox will get it done.
Dude, I just got to tell you right now, Cox by freaking 90. You're welcome, Abigail Grace Conan. Yeah, dude, I got the Cox, bro. I got the Cox probably by at least, I'm going to say 14, dude. I don't think Missouri's that great. Like, you can say, like, oh, well, Georgia or whatever. Yeah, man, they threw everything they had at us. They tried to get the dub, and they didn't, and they fall apart in the second half, man. They barely got past Vanderbilt. And you know what? You can say, well, that's really bad for Georgia. You know what? Probably is for our strength of schedule. You're right. I'll say you're right. But you know what? Georgia just played a bad game. We're not talking about that one right now. Anyway, yeah, I got South Carolina. I think like you said, Rattler's finding his stride. They're a good football team. Beamer's turning the program around in only his second year. Like, this is a good South Carolina team, especially because South Carolina had to wait till like week 10 to make a bowl last year. It was like the game before Clemson. So I guess that's like week 12. The game before Clemson, they got their 6th win and made the bowl. And then they beat UNC in the Dukes Mayo Bowl with DeCarrion Joyner at quarterback, which is awesome. But yeah, and like, this is pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, Joey got USC, so that's like what, the 8th TBD triple pick in a row. Good Lord, man, our records are just gonna.
We might run the table with this one.
I'm about to say our records might just stay the same. We might all go 10-0. You never know, man. All right, next up, second to last game, going to move quickly. We got number 15 Ole Miss at Texas A&M at 7:30 p.m. Ole Miss coming in off a loss to LSU last week. Go Tigers, apparently. That was the one I lost on. Anyway, Ole Miss 7-1, taking their first loss. Texas A&M, Aggies 3-4. Ole Miss 3-1 in the conference. Texas A&M 1-3 in the conference. This game is 57% in Ole Miss's favor from the ESPN FPI, and the spread is 2 in Ole Miss's favor. That is crazy. We're gonna let Joey pick this one first. Joey is going with Ole Miss to win this game. Now, we've talked about before how, College Station is a difficult place to play. Probably the second most difficult. Look, Bryce Young lost there last year. But then you can also look and say, well, App State beat them there this year. So it just depends on the day, man. But yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with Ole Miss as well. I think I don't. After seeing the way Texas A&M played at South Carolina, they have some major difficulties and some things going on there, especially some locker room incident involving Jimbo's son. Apparently, not sure. Still don't have all the details on that, but I do know that there was like 4 or 5 freshmen players that were suspended from their team that were playing, that were starters. So that's going to hurt them. I got Ole Miss.
Yeah, and I was just ready to say I wasn't sure what the details were on what happened, but I did read that there were a few players suspended from A&M. As difficult as Kyle Field is going to be to play on a Saturday night, it's going to be a tough place, but I think, as much as it pains me to say, I think the Rebels will get back on track, and I think they'll get the win.
Yeah, there you go. That's 9 in a row. All right, last game, we got another Big 12 matchup. Last one, Baylor at Texas Tech at 7:30. Again, not a lot of great games. This one's probably going to be pretty close. This is 50.8% from the ESPN FPI in Texas Tech's favor. 2.5 points in the spread in Texas Tech's favor. Baylor Bears 4-3. Texas Tech 4-3. Both 2-2. So both these teams are already over 500, but they're just trying to get games for the bowl at this point, man. Trying to get to the bowl. All right, man. I gotta pick this one, and I don't want to, but you know what? I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna go with Texas Tech to cover the spread. You know what? Yep. I was about to backtrack that, and I decided I'm gonna go with Texas Tech. There's been some difficult games played at Texas Tech this season, and all the teams that have played there have not come out with wins. Texas Tech knows how to play at home, so I got the Raiders at Texas Tech this weekend and covering the spread.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick, Mason. I'm right there with you. Yeah, I would love to see Baylor get the win. I like to see David Aranda succeed, but for some reason Baylor has kind of fallen off a tad bit this season. Like you said, Texas Tech, they've played well at home. The spread's only 2.5. I'd like them to cover that. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders, even if I would like Baylor to win. I'm going to go with the Raiders because I'm not dumb.
See, man. It's funny. I want to pull for Baylor too. I think they got a good defense. I think they can win this game. But I'm going with Texas Tech to win it just because of what I've seen at Texas Tech this year. And Joey is picking Texas Tech as well. There you go. The records are not changing at all this week. Joey's still going to have at least a game lead at the end of the week. And at the end of the weekend, and that's that, man. So yeah, we all picked the same. It's not a crazy week.
Wow,
I can't believe we actually did that because I did not look at Joey's picks before this. I promise, except for the ones that we said his picks first. But yeah, that's our podcast. We got an interesting week of college football coming up, and yeah, man, go freaking Dogs.
Go Tigers. Let's do it.
Heck yeah. Always remember, No matter what team you pull for, if you're on God's side, you're always on the winning team. Know that John 3:16 through 17 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world might be saved through him." And yes, that is truth. That is the biblical 100% truth that we believe here at TBD Sportscast. Just know that salvation in Jesus is incredibly close to the heart and mission of TBD Sportscast. We want all of our listeners to know Jesus and follow him because he loves you. God sent his only Son to die for you because he loves you. While you were still his enemy, he sent his only Son to die for you. That's what it tells us in Romans 5:8. If you ever have any questions about that, or if you're struggling with anything and you just need somebody to talk to, whether it be mental health, mental illness, faith struggles, anything like that, you can always reach out to us. You can hit us up on our Instagram DMs, message us on Facebook Messenger, or just leave a comment on this YouTube video. We'll always get back to you, we'll always talk to you. We're praying for our listeners, and we just, once again, want you to know that you can have freedom and joy and peace that passes understanding, and it's only from one place, and that is salvation in Jesus. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you guys have a great weekend of college football. We hope you enjoy watching the games, and we will see you next week.
Later.
Bye-bye.